This video will take you through how to calculate the inclusive mainstream fund values for all of your schools in your trust and import them into IMP using our IMF calculator. The first place to start is with our Help Centre. If you search for IMF, you will find the Inclusive Mainstream Fund Calculator Guide. The calculator can be downloaded from this section of the guide. Download the file and then locate where it has been saved on your machine. Once you have located the file, before you open it, right-click on the file and select Properties. You may see a small box at the bottom which says Unblock. You need to tick that, and then tick Apply. This appears on some machines and not others, but it is important to check before opening the file, as macros will not run if the file is blocked. Once that is done, you can open the file. There are instructions in here and also in the help guide to help you navigate through the process. This calculator is designed to bring through all of your schools and URNs from IMP into the template and then cross-reference those against the URNs in the DFE dataset for this funding. You then populate some additional information, which will allow you to generate 2 import files that you can load directly into IMP. For this to work, the first thing you will need to do is create an API key, and you can do this through your IMP Planner screen. If you go to Account, and then Account again, you will see API settings here. You want to select Generate Read-Only API Token. Now, for those of you that are already using our self-service reporting, or maybe other tools where we use API keys, you may already have an API key that is ready to use. If not, you can generate a new read-only API token here. What you want to do is take that API key and copy and paste it into the token box here on the spreadsheet. I have pasted that in, and now I want to refresh the data. What it is now doing is bringing across all of your schools, all of your finance codes, and all of your departments that you can choose from. You may have to do some resizing on the screen as it does that refresh, but I can now see all of my schools listed in IMP. I can see the URNs that are being pulled across from IMP, and then I can see the DFE school name. That has been cross-referenced against the URN, so you can do a check that the URN you have in IMP matches the school name the DFE have in their dataset. If you do have any of these missing, you can go back into IMP Planner and update them in there. They are in the Schools table, which is within Codes and Schools. You can add your URNs into there, or you can manually overtype them within this screen if you prefer. You can also go to GIAS to look up the URN numbers for your schools and either update them in IMP and refresh, or enter them directly into the spreadsheet. We then move on to the other part of the screen that needs completing. Any of these light blue cells are values that can be adjusted by the user. The first column, column H, is asking, do you want to build budget rows for this location? For all of my schools, I am going to set that to yes. You can do a copy and paste in here as well. And then for my central location, there is no funding for the central location, so I am going to set that to no. I can then select the finance code I want to budget this IMF funding against. I am going to choose code 1000 in this case, but you will need to decide the right code for your schools. I will copy that down for the schools that I am including. The ledger code is automatically picked up, and then I need to pick a department where I want this to go. Again, you will need to define the right department for this. I will use this code here for the example, and then copy these down. If you use fund codes at a scenario row level in IMP, then you will need to populate the fund column as well, the fund that it relates to. The majority of trusts do not do this, but it is worth noting if you are one of those that do use funds at a scenario row level. And then we have the calculator. The calculator tells us how this number is going to evolve in future years. I am going to attach this to my GAG pupil uplift calculator, and again, copy that down for all of those budget rows that I want to include. The description is pre-populated, but you can overtype this as well if you want to. And then I get some validation at the end, which is checking whether the finance code that I have selected for this school and the department that I have selected for this school is a valid combination. Once you have done that, you have updated your URNs, you have populated this information. The next thing to click is Create Imports. That then goes through a process of creating two files. The first is the IMP Scenario Rows file. The only additional step you need to do in here is select how you want that budget profiled. For the April to August amount, I am going to select an April to August profiling. For the September to March amount, I am going to select a September to March profiling, and then I am going to copy these down across all of my rows. The scenario year values. I do not need to add anything into that. Once you have got to that point, you can now prepare these files to import into IMP. What you would do is right-click on each tab and select Move or Copy. I am going to select New Book. I want to create a new worksheet and create a copy of that. This is a really important step. You want to save this. And you want to save this as a CSV file. I am going to change the file type to CSV, delimited, and these are my scenario rows. Close that file. And then on the scenario year values, again I am going to click Move or Copy. New Book. Create a copy. And then save that again as a CSV file. I will call that scenario year values. My two files are now prepared. I want to go back to IMP, and I am going to go to Scenario Control and Scenario Import-Export. The two imports I need to use are the Scenario Rows import and the Scenario Year values. I am going to start with Scenario Rows. You have to do this before you do the Scenario Year values. I am going to select my file. Which is Scenario Rows there. I am going to import that. I will go back now. My scenario rows have been imported successfully. I now need to add the values for those. I want scenario year values. I will select that file and import those into IMP. Now if I go to my non-salary budget screen and search for IMF, I can see that for all of my schools, I now have those budget rows added. For 25-26, I have just the April to August element going in there. And then for 25-26, there is nothing for September 26 to March 27. That appears in the following year, along with the 5/12ths of the grant that will be received in April 27 to August 27. In this example, I have chosen to roll it forward using that pupil number calculator, rather than trying to build it into my GAG funding line. And once GAG statements are received, and this grant is rolled into your GAG through the National Funding Formula, at that point, I would update my GAG funding and zero out these lines in future years.